In this video presentation, I shall discuss about very short question answer, that is 2 or 3 marks question answer from Act 1, Scene 2 of William Shakespeare's play Macbeth. Now my dear students, I welcome you all to my educational channel. The name of my educational channel is Priyankar Dotto. Here you can find video presentations on English language and literature of school level, college level as well as of competitive examinations. Now before going to the main focus of this video presentation, I want to make a declaration, and the declaration is that we have recently introduced ebook service, and for getting ebooks you can WhatsApp me or send me message in my Telegram, and the number for both the cases is the same. You may put down the number 9434581673. You can also find the numbers in the description of the channel itself. Now without wasting any moment, let us move to the main focus of this video presentation. The first question from this scene is, how did Duncan and Malcolm describe the bleeding captain? The answer to the question is, Duncan described the bleeding captain as a bloody man. By the word bloody he meant bleeding. The second part of the question demands this answer. Malcolm described the bleeding captain as a good and efficient soldier. He explained it by saying that when he had been made a prisoner, the captain had fought for him and ultimately had rescued him. The second question from this scene is, how did the bleeding captain use the analogy of the two Spain swimmers? The answer to the question is, according to the bleeding captain, the outcome of the battle of the rebel army against the army of Duncan was undecided when he left the place. He compared both the sides to two swimmers who were exhausted, and so rather than trying to go to the finishing point were grappling with each other. The third question from this scene is, how did the bleeding captain describe Macdonald? The answer to the question is, the bleeding captain described Macdonald as a man who was devoid of mercy. He added that Macdonald was naturally evil. He concluded that Macdonald was a rebel Parsi. He went to the extent of saying that Macdonald had been aided by the Irish carns and gallows glasses. He also mentioned that Macdonald had been killed by Macbeth. The fourth question from this scene is, what were the Western Isles carns and gallows glasses? The answer to the question, Western Isles were nothing but the Hebrides. Carns were light-armed Irish foot soldiers. Gallows glasses were heavily armed Irish sportsmen. According to the bleeding captain, the carns and the gallows glasses assisted Macdonald in his opposition against Duncan, and they came from the Western Isles. He added that these soldiers failed to make Macdonald victorious. The fifth question from this scene is, how did the bleeding captain describe Fortune? The answer to the question is, the bleeding captain described Fortune as one who smiled or supported the wicked act of rebellion committed by Macdonald. However, as the captain added, Fortune proved to be a prostitute who smiled upon her customer, that is Macdonald, at the beginning only to deceive him afterwards. Thus, Fortune ultimately favored brave Macbeth. The sixth question from this scene is, how did the bleeding captain draw a relationship between Macbeth and Fortune? The answer to the question is, according to the bleeding captain, Macbeth did not rely upon Fortune in the course of his encounter with Macdonald. Rather, he relied upon his own martial skills. He added that even when Fortune seemed to favor Macdonald, Macbeth kept on fighting, not only against Macdonald but also against Fortune, so to say. The next question from this scene is, in what sense did the bleeding captain use the phrase rebel soul? The answer to the question is, the bleeding captain used the phrase rebel soul to characterize the attitude of Fortune to Macdonald. The word rebel was used to refer to Macdonald. A whore is a woman who betrays pleasantly with a customer at first, who behaves pleasantly with a customer at first, only to betray the latter in the long run. Similarly, initially Fortune seemed to favor Macdonald, but later withdrew it. The eighth question from this scene is, explain the phrases blandy steel and valor's minion. The answer to the question is, or rather to the questions are, the phrase brandished steel refers to the waving sword of Macbeth. The word brandished meaning waving, and the word steel refers to the sword made of it. The second part of the question demands the answer. The words valor and minion mean courage and favorite respectively. Here valor is looked upon as a deity whose favorite is Macbeth. Through the phrases, the bleeding captain acknowledged the bravery of Macbeth. The ninth question from this scene is, how did Macbeth kill Macdonald? The answer to the question is, Macdonald, who rebelled against Duncan, was assisted by guns and gallowglasses. Macbeth fought against the said opposition. He did not have the support of fortune. Still, he kept on fighting. Finally, he met Macdonald. Then, without shaking hands with him or bidding him farewell, Macbeth pierced his body from the navel to the jaws and cut his head down. The 10th question from this scene is, how did the bleeding captain describe the eastern sky? The answer to the question is, according to the bleeding captain, it is from the eastern sky that the sun begins to radiate its light, which is a source of joy. He added that it is from the same source that storms and thunder, which cause problems, arise. He equated it with the comfort and the assumed discomfort issuing before Macbeth from the death of Macdonald. The 11th question from this scene is, how did the bleeding captain define justice? The answer to the question is, the bleeding captain defined justice as one whose weapon is valor, meaning courage. The implication is that justice is meted out to the truly courageous persons. Here Macbeth is the courageous person because he did not become frightened when the Irish guns and gallowglasses assisted Macdonald, but kept on fighting till he won. The 12th question from this scene is, what did the captain mean through the expression, from that spring whence comfort seemed to come, discomfort swells? The answer to the question is, through the expression from that spring whence comfort seemed to come, discomfort swells, the captain meant that when a situation seemed unproblematic, problems began to crop up. He suggested that after the death of Macdonald, Macbeth and Banquo seemed to be in a position to relax, but the King of Norway made a new attack on their army. The 13th question from this scene is, why and how did the King of Norway attack the army of King Duncan? The answer to the question is, after Macbeth killed Macdonald and the Carns ran away, the King of Norway attacked the army of King Duncan. He did so probably because he wanted to take advantage of the physical exhaustion of the king's army. He made the attack with the newly acquired arms and physically charged up soldiers. The 14th question from this scene is, how did the captain compare the sense of dismay in Macbeth and Banquo at the attack of the King of Norway? The answer to the question is, the captain compared the sense of dismay in Macbeth and Banquo at the attack of the King of Norway to those of eagles and the lion to sparrows and the hare respectively. Sparrows produce little dismay to eagles. The same can be said about the hare to the lion. Thus there was no dismay in Macbeth and Banquo. The 15th question from this scene is, what did Macbeth and Banquo do in reaction to the attack of the King of Norway? The answer to the question, in reaction to the attack of the King of Norway, Macbeth and Banquo sprang upon the enemies with 4 times of their usual valor and defeated them easily. The bleeding captain felt that Macbeth and Banquo might have wanted to bathe themselves in blood or wanted to make the battlefield as memorable as Golgotha. The 16th question from this scene is, what is Golgotha? The answer to the question is, Golgotha is another name for Calvary. It is the place where Jesus Christ was crucified on the cross. In the course of fighting with the army of the King of Norway, Banquo and Macbeth killed numerous soldiers. The bleeding captain felt that in the course of this, Macbeth and Banquo made the battlefield as famous as Golgotha. The 17th question is, they smack of honor both, and from the quoted words, a question may be set, and the question is, what are referred to by the word both and how do they smack of honor? The answer to the question is, the words as well as the wounds of the bleeding captain are referred to by the word both. His words smack of honor as they refer to the extraordinary heroism of Banquo and Macbeth exhibited in the course of their fights with all the enemies of King Duncan. His wounds smack of honor by suggesting his loyalty to King Duncan. The 18th question from this scene is, who is referred to as the most disloyal traitor and why? The answer to the question is, the Thane of Cawdor is referred to as the most disloyal traitor. He is a part of the administrative system of Scotland and so he should maintain the integrity of the country. However, rather than maintaining this integrity, he tries to shatter it by assisting the King of Norway. That's why he is called the most disloyal traitor. traitor. The 19th question from this scene is, what did the Thane of Ross say about Macbeth's bravery in the fight with the combined forces of the King of Norway and the Thane of Cawdor? The answer to the question is, according to the Thane of Ross, when the Thane of Cawdor assisted the large army of Norway, the soldiers of Duncan's side became panicky. Then Macbeth, who can be looked upon as the newly married husband of Bellona, appeared on the scene and fought bravely with the King of Norway and secured victory for his side. The 20th question from this scene is, what does the phrase Bellona's bridegroom mean? The answer to the question is, according to Roman mythology, Bellona is the goddess of war. The word bridegroom means husband. Macbeth is here looked upon as Bellona's bridegroom, that is the husband of Bellona, because he has exhibited extraordinary skill and superhuman strength in the course of his fights against the enemies of King Duncan. The 21st question from this scene is, who was the King of Norway? And there is another question, how did he behave after his defeat and to what effect? The answer to the question is, or rather the answers to the questions are, Siuno was the King of Norway, and the answer to the second question included in question number 21 is, he also, after his defeat, he begged for a treaty. He also wanted the dead bodies of his soldiers to be given to him for burial. The third part of the question demands the answer. On behalf of King Duncan, Ross and others claimed $10,000 to be paid at St. Colmy's Inch. They claimed the amount for their general benefit. We have come to the penultimate question from this scene. What did King Duncan decide to do with the Thane of Cawdor and why? The answer to the question is, King Duncan wanted the Thane of Cawdor to be put to death. The Thane of Cawdor was a part of the administrative system of Scotland, so he should have tried to maintain the integrity of the country. However, he tried to shatter it by assisting the King of Norway, so the king took the decision. The final question from this scene is, explain the literal meaning as well as the ironic meaning of. There is an expression, what he had lost noble Macbeth has won. The answer to the question is, the literal meaning of the quoted words is that the person to be executed has lost the title of the Thane of Cawdor and the title has been bestowed to Macbeth. The ironic meaning of the quoted words is that Macbeth has imbibed the treacherousness of the Thane of Cawdor and that he will use it afterwards. You can very easily understand that this is a very important question for the examination purpose. However, we have completed the very short question, 2 or 3 mark short question from Act 1, Scene 2 of Macbeth. Now, before concluding this video presentation, I request you to subscribe my channel, to share my video presentations to your friends so that they can also be benefited. I also request you to put forward your comment in the comment section of the video presentations, and you must keep in mind that every comment is a kind of encouragement to us. Thank you.